I'm opting to remove the alternator brackets and all this sort of stuff to get it out of the way, because you do have to make a small cut back here to fit the 3G alternator. Timing cover off, I've done a couple other little things to start removing the header bolts. Okay, so last night I ended up putting the power steering pump back on. So I bolted the bracket to the head, ran the 2 bolts in that hold it to the bracket, to the head, and then the bracket support, which are just 2 nuts to the water pump studs. So we got that in, and we're going to be at some point trimming. I believe it's right about here over, I believe this little area here needs to get trimmed out for the 3G alternator. If I'm not mistaken, it has a larger body, which will come back to here, and this part just needs to be notched out. Okay, so I mounted up the alternator. Basically, you can just take it, mount it up, and then you can swing it over to see where your first cut is going to be. The first cut on mine is right here. Okay, so I got this side trimmed up. I got this all cleaned up nice. I took down the profile right here. It would contact right about, actually you can kind of see the contact mark right there on the alternator is where it started contacting. So I cleaned up a little bit here. I just used, for this one, I just used a carbide burr. Actually, a couple of them. Oh, where's the other one? And then this little air sander. Just cleaned it up a little bit. And it all goes together. Perfectly. Painting and sanding those brackets, those took a couple hours to do. Going in today, I believe. I'm gonna get back to work, get this thing cleaned up. Got a little bit of work I gotta do before I start installing the alternator. I wanna just do a little more detailing down in the front. Haven't done very much down there, so I'm gonna do a little bit of detailing for maybe half hour, just in the front of the radiator support, and then I'm gonna get installing the brackets, the alternator, and yeah, get back to work on this thing. Okay, not much has changed since the last clip I filmed. I basically continued to finish all that up and tidied up some of that, along with mounting that. So for the alternator upgrade, LMR wants you to put the fuse block right up here in front of your battery. I don't like how that looks. I think it's bulky in the way, and I'd rather not have this ugly fuse block right above my battery. I just don't like that. So where I'm gonna mount this is, it's right underneath, off the frame rail, right here. Now this is a pre-existing hole. I had to slightly enlarge it just with a file. Like, I mean, ever so slightly to fit a nutsert. And then I'll probably have like a bracket coming off here down. You can put it wherever you want if you don't care about drilling holes in your car. I'll keep you updated and show you what I'm doing with this, because this is going to be slightly different than how LMR wants you to do it.
I did it my way.
I hope this way is going to look better and just be more, I don't know, tucked out of the way, or block for it's in, or the fuse block for the 3G alternator's in. Okay, so a little bit of time has passed since the last bit I videoed on the 3G alternator upgrade. I believe the last thing I videoed, the engine was still apart, so it is back together. Alternator's back in and the brackets are on. If you don't know how to bolt it in, it's pretty simple. There's 3 bolts, one there, and one is hidden right, you can see right there. This will bolt right back on. I know I showed how I clearanced it. I clearanced a little bit right here on the bracket itself, just so it didn't hit contact the top of the alternator. And then where I trimmed, you can see right down in there where I've trimmed it out just a little bit. Now, the way I'm going to be doing this is slightly different. This is LMR's 3G alternator kit. So these are the wiring you'll have to do for it. And then you got the main power feed wire. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to run the wiring. It's going to be different than, because they tuck everything up underneath here. I've already got a decent amount of wiring here. I want to keep this wire shorter and more out of the way. I'm going to tuck it up underneath with the starter wiring. So I'm going to put this down underneath here, and then I'm going to run it from there to where I have my fuse block right here. Okay, so I've got the cable all mounted up on here, the alternator, and I've run it down, and it hooks onto the starter cable wiring, and it's zip tied underneath of it. It comes around, and then it's gonna come up and then into the block here. So I have a little bit extra wiring. I just need to figure out where I'm gonna cut it, and then I'll have some extra wire. Probably gonna cut it somewhere around here. I'll probably cut it, and then you need something like this. So you'll have to find what size you'll need and then just match it up with there. Okay, so I got the wire partly crimped. I didn't get the best crimp on it. It was holding decent-ish when I was pulling on it, so before I soldered it, but this one had a cut in the front of it. So I was able to take my little gas torch and feed a bunch of solder in, and it's come all the way through to the back. So this is on there pretty good right now. I'm not too worried about that. This should just go right over top, shrink down, and then I won't have to worry about any issues there. Okay, so that's it all done. That's how I do it. I put a little piece of electrical tape on either end, and then just use that black hockey tape. My connector's fine. I'm not going to opt to remove it and swap it with the other one. If yours is shot, this is the time to replace it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the stock wiring, not touch it. I'm going to cut right about here is where I'm going to cut this wire, and then these two. You can actually, by the way, these are the power feed wires. Put it on there also, and then you have these two plus the heavy gauge wire, which I believe is how LMR shows doing it. So I'll just put these two together. Just put those two together like that, heat shrink it. That goes on there. This wire will get attached to this one, and then we're done. That's it. Okay, so I got this all done. The terminals are on. I used the higher quality heat shrink, this stuff, the one that's got the glue in it. I used that one, and then just put this stuff that came in the kit over top, just because it would match, and that's really it. Couple little tips that I'll give. When you have wiring that comes with the end already stripped off. I recommend just cutting it off, stripping it back, and then going from there. You then take a little piece of heat shrink. I've already crimped this end on. Always make sure to give it like a little pull just to make sure to make sure it's got a good connection, because that can be a nightmare to trace. All you're then going to want to do is slide the other end in, crimp that. A little bit of heat shrink over top, and it's virtually undetectable. It's so much more compact. That's not going anywhere. So I'll just slide a little bit of heat shrink right over top. There you go. You can see that's quite a bit cleaner. That is almost about done for the entire system. We're just about there. I'm gonna tidy all this up in a couple minutes and rewrap all this in electrical tape. Okay, so we got the charging system all done. It's all tucked away. You can see. Just make sure you got a bit of an air gap on that wire right there, so it doesn't chafe itself against the alternator. It's hard to see, but there is just a hair of a gap, and I got some pretty thick heat shrink on there. I actually have like 3 layers of heat shrink on there, so that should be good. That's the entire charging system 3G alternator upgrade done. Yeah, I hope this helps some of you guys out with your 3G alternator upgrade. Hopefully this helped you guys out. See ya.